What a sweetie pie.
That's my BFF.
I love Eddie.
My BFF of actually, we've known each other when she said 30 years. I was doing the math in my head. I think it's 33 years.
That's fun.
That's like how
So
old you are.
I'm 34.
In perspective, it's kind of funny.
Yes. So that means you met in about 87, 88?
I guess. No, because I moved to Nashville in 89.
And did you know her before Nashville?
No, is the math not adding up?
Well, it's still 31 years. If you met, if
Oh, so it's more 30. I think she was right. She's better at math than I am.
I made you feel a little bit better. I was 3 years old.
Yeah, good.
And what she's just, I love her perspective, her naive innocence, and I don't mean naive in any kind of a negative way. She's just the way she unfolds her story and talks about. She's like, I didn't even think that Vancouver was that far away, and you're like,
It was an hour away.
it's literally as far as you can go and still be in the country. So it's just that I think it's a sense of you don't. She's never going to judge you because she's just kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. She's very, very just welcoming and sweet. And I appreciate her perspective on a lot of things. And, it seems like her spiritual life unfolded in a very open and accepting way in a lot of ways. And that's cool,
Well, she came at it. I love to see, we talk about the mechanism of what
Yeah.
and then also the different paths. I love to see the different paths, and that she came, even though she's been my BFF for so long, she came to the spirituality through medicine,
Right.
through the mind body connection and understanding the mind body connection first to and then realizing how powerful her thoughts were, and then I came to it fully from meditation. That's why I was, of course, as being a good BFF, was trying to get her to meditate for so many years. And I was a little evangelical when I was younger, I must
Sure.
say, with it all. But yeah, that's what I love to see. But we all come, and then Erin, when we talked to her, she came at it just by being frustrated by being a young 20-something-year-old young woman that was unhappy
Yeah.
and frustrated with who she was
Hmm.
and with the thoughts ruling her life, and then Roger, who was just so easily, it just was like,
Seemed to
no,
never. It seemed
yeah,
like there was no way he was never gonna find that because his life seemed to unfold that way.
yeah, it's like even his parents, like I was going to ask him, how did his parents think? And he offered that information. His parents are like, oh, is that what you want to do? That sounds fine. What parents that would go off with this yogi from the Himalayas,
Yeah.
this guru wearing, white robes, go live with him and meditate for a couple of months in Switzerland.
Well, because he said it sounded like it was a step up for him because he's a troublemaker, and it's like, oh, at least he's going to go do something, positive or not self-serving, but it was something that was a noble cause versus just being a destructive force, like he kind of described it in his adolescence. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting how we all find that vein towards that spiritual awareness of ourselves, our potential, our purpose, our beingness, which is funny because without, I don't want to, this could sound arrogant, but there's a certain common thread that I feel between everybody we've talked to, not to say levels or anything like that, but there's a curiosity or a questioning or, a sense that why can't it be other than the way it is? I mean, that's kind of how, I think that's how Gary, kind of approached, early on. It's just, and Werner too, is just like, why couldn't I go do this? Why couldn't I go explore? Why is that an unacceptable thing to do? And obviously that's not, that kind of manifested differently for everybody, but there's a certain curiosity and a quest for just differentness. Some people have a quest for, I want more, and I know that's how it manifested for me a lot was, well, if I just meditate, I can become more spiritual. And if I, become more spiritual, I can become more enlightened. And if I become more enlightened, I can become a better human being. And all these things are just more, better, this, that. And it's funny how you can recognize when somebody has connected with their spiritual source. There seems to be a presence and an acceptance about who they are as their manifestation of beingness. And there's an acceptance, there's a huge acceptance of that. It's like, I can't change certain elements about you. Do you feel that way? Or maybe I'm just I'm kind of spitballing now, but it's like, I'm there is a beingness to Eddie that seems innate, that seems like unchangeable before or after. And she said, she mentioned that about you and her. It's like, we're very different, same, but different. It's hard to articulate to a deeper degree. And now I'm just stumbling, but it's hard to find, but there is a certain acceptance about our own madness. When you accept your own madness at some point in your life, you learn to love yourself for whoever you are in that moment.
I think that's key exactly there, Sean. I think an acceptance of who you are, because in the process of writing my book, I'm seeing that all of my struggles were all of my own making.
Yeah.
Right. And when I finally got to the point of accepting myself and my journey, and I then it was, bliss. And it's great now to just accept who I am. And that's might sound funny to like people because I think there's a whole sect of people that don't ever question themselves or their path or their journey. And they would think like we're a little nutty to question it. Like, how could you, so I think it's a great point that you just made.
Well, and that's, when we had that great trip, we coined the likeness of Gilligan. We just felt like two Gilligans. And everybody, not everybody, but you look around you and you see so many people taking life serious. And I remember so many stories where we were talking about it, and everybody's like hung up or caught up on this or that, and I'm just like, are we not discussing whatever weird rant? Like, there's this elephant in the room in all these serious conversations, and everybody that is, on one side or the other seems to be ignoring this elephant in the room. I'm having trouble with an example, but it's like, I mean, and I think that was with Christianity. I think I know it's obviously a huge beginning stage to a lot of our spirituality in this culture, in the Western culture, of course.
Western culture, sure.
And there was a lot of times where I feel like the point was made, and Jesus Christ's message is very poignant. It's very obvious. It's very focused on an acceptance and non-judgment, and not taking the rules to such a degree that it creates an imbalance in society. I mean, that's kind of the point. And I feel like I got that message early on. And I was like, cool, like, we all got this message. This is a good message. And then I saw so many people purposefully or ignoring that message for whatever reason. And I'm like, well, wait, aren't these the core principles here? And marriage equality is one, I think, a very good example, because we are past it. Societally, we have come to realize that everybody should have the right towards happiness. I mean, that's in the code of conduct for the United States Constitution, is the pursuit of happiness. And in Christianity, that fills our Western social constructs, is on compassion, and the passion of the Christ. That's the embodiment of that is,
and thou shalt not judge.
And thou shalt not judge. I mean, all these core principles. I'm like, if you actually focused on the core value of your Christianity, you would have it. That it's there. And yet there's so many people, particularly from the Christian religion who fight against marriage equality to a degree where it's like, if I had to guess whether Jesus Christ would or would not attend a same-sex marriage, I would have to lean towards would, because all of the stories, all the parables point to, listen, you don't have to understand this to be compassionate. You don't have to understand this to be kind. You don't have to understand this to call this person your brother or your sister. And that there's no missing that point. In if you read anything about Christ, there's no missing that point from my view, that is what we should aim to have as our how we interact with each other, and yet we don't, and that's an elephant in the room for me. Is like, wait a minute, we're having these political, social, conversations, and now we have come back to the shadow element of segregation within our society, or repression of certain culture groups and everybody's so surprised by it. It's like, well, you don't even have to agree with it at first, but just put that down for a second and listen to somebody and what they might have to say about their experience. And if you are compassionate to somebody else's experience, you might learn that it doesn't have to be true for you for it to be true for that person. And if it's that true for that person and that person feels that way, it just takes a little bit of empathy then to say, okay, well, I don't like feeling the way you seem to be feeling. So what can we do together to build steps so neither one of us feel this way? And there's these elephants in the room where it's like we're talking about the problems, but we're forgetting to look for a solution here. And that's what I think I love about these conversations is there's room for solutions, or there's room for perspectives, or there's room for nuance. There's room for articulation of a perspective, so you can be like, damn, I have never thought about it that way, and that's beautiful. That doesn't make me wrong, you right. It just means that's where you're coming from. This is where I'm coming from. I totally just went out of a tangent.
No, I love it. What's interesting is I think that more people, I hope that people will hear stuff and think, oh, I've never thought of anything like that before, and it's interesting. I think more often people think, oh, I have felt that way. I resonate with that. I think we tend to resonate what we rings true for us, and when we hear different perspective, it's a little bit off. But as I think we've talked about before, it's like when you travel, well, even you just leaving Wisconsin and coming to Nashville, learning, and Eddie talks about leaving Newfoundland and going to Vancouver, and just like growing up and seeing that there's more than the world that they were raised in, right? And I think when you travel and you see so many people with so many different views and ways of thinking and ways of doing things, and yet we're all the human race and we all want love and we all want to be accepted. So we have these amazing commonalities, but then we have these differences, each walking the journey in such a in different way. And I hope that we become more accepting of each other. I mean, I think at the end of the Say More on the last episode, you had said that we're not that far apart. And I love that perspective. Like, everybody seems so polar opposite, but if you really look at what it is you want and could actually listen and discuss, but people won't even listen and discuss.
Yeah.
But if you really looked at it and did look at it and did listen, you would see that we're not really that far apart. So.
Well, and I find it interesting where I've been generally open to the thought or concept that of bringing new ideas, new beliefs in, trying them on, and just checking out how it feels to wear that new belief or that new program. And there's been a lot of times where something didn't fit right. I'm not nearly as drawn to the Eastern philosophy as much as some people. You would think because you assume, oh, you meditate, you must be into, Hinduism or Buddha. It's like not really. And I do like yoga, but it's not the traditional style of yoga that we have grown up or you've taught me. And I've had a very untraditional influence, but it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different ideas and different beliefs that have become my thing, my lifestyle. And what I think is interesting is how threatened people can be by new ideas, by new beliefs. And it's you never have to just jump on another ship and just, oh, here's a new belief, I got to take that on. It's going to destroy my. If your beliefs are that devout and that strong, you should welcome other beliefs because it's just going to create more strength in your beliefs. But if you're threatened by a new idea or a new belief without really even giving that belief an opportunity to be heard by your own being, at that point you just become threatened by everything, and it's.
Well, it's a rigidity, and
Yeah.
we take a look at nature. Nothing in nature is rigid. If you have a rigid tree, it will break,
Yeah.
right? And so rigidity, even in a human being, will cause broken bones.
Yeah.
Rigidity in the brain causes Alzheimer's. It's being a little more fluid and open, and that happens in different ways. A lot of
Yeah.
people that are rigid early on, it's just part of their path,
Yeah.
and then they do get broken a little, either with a broken heart or a divorce or an illness or a death, and that breaks the heart open and allows the light to come in a little bit, and then they maybe are a little bit more open to other ways of looking at things. But I see it all, the diversity. It's like sometimes somebody playing the role in this life as the rigid person helps the other fluid person just see how fluid they are and how
Yeah.
fluid they want to be. That's what I help people with in my coaching is somebody who has a problem with their mother. Their mother is like not the person that they wanted them to be, and it didn't give them the love that they wanted. And I'm like, well, what did that give you then? That forced you to find love on your own instead of seeking it from her. That forced you to be a very loving mother or a very loving friend, right? It's like all of it all plays off of one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how easily you get persuaded by your own mind to try to change something in somebody else instead of look at what's part of your process that is either perpetuating something you don't agree with or like. And as a parent, that's all over the place, because you basically relive your childhood over again in a lot of ways because you go through a lot of the same motions but from the parent side instead of the kid side. And there's a lot of times where you have to choose, am I going to use what my parents taught me or do I feel strongly that a new process has to take place here? And and then when let's say you do choose the new process as a parent, then you have ooh, would my parents approve? Because it's like you want your parents' approval, but now it's all you're the parent, and you got to constantly be back and forth, and it's a slippery slope in a lot of ways. But that's where trusting and intuition is important because especially right now we got 11 and a 9-year-old. We're making decisions for them that are dramatically going to change the course of their life 5-10 years down the road, and we don't really know how that is going to play out. And you just kind of got to be honest with yourself about your experience as a child, what might have made your experience more fruitful, and then apply that here without having regret or without having animosity towards the fact that you didn't have that as a kid, and it's tricky, For an example, Novi, my middle child, she seems to be doing much better in a homeschooled situation. We had Grayson, my oldest, homeschooled for a while, and it was just not his pace. It was not working. It created emotional disparity disparity. It was emotionally problematic for him, and it just we ended up having him go back to school now that everything's kind of settled. But we're not sure we're going to do that for Novi. I feel like her mindset and her trajectory in life needs an alternative teaching method, and we don't know if that's the right thing to do. We might be, limiting her social interactions, but you got to try and you got to guess. And, she might hate us 10 years from now and be like, why the hell did you homeschool us? I don't have any friends. But, it might be the best thing for her. And you just kind of got to go with intuition as a parent. So,
Yeah, well, I think no matter what you choose, your parents are going to find your children are going to find
oh,
problems with
sure.
the one you chose.
Yeah. There's
I joke with my mom all the time. I'm like this because of you. Now I'm totally joking because I would never blame her, but she's like, I know, it's all because of me. In fact, when she let me quit piano, I can't. I don't remember my brother taking piano. I think he just downright refused. But my sister and I had to take piano lessons.
yeah.
And my little sister, 3 years younger than me, zoomed way ahead of me within the first year or two. She was teaching piano by the time she was like 13.
Wow.
And we started at like 7 or 8 years old or something. And she had to stop for a couple years because her feet wouldn't reach the pedals, and she had to stop because she was so good. And so I guess that was probably a little frustrating for me being the older sister. My sister was just so much better at pretty much everything than I was. And so I wanted to quit piano within the first couple of years of learning. I think I had 3 years of piano, and my mom's like, no, you're going to regret this one day. And I'm like, I promise you, I will never. I can remember I was only like 8 or 9 years old. I will never regret this. I hate practicing. I don't want to do this. And she's like, okay, but you can't ever. And I never did. I never.
Never regretted it. Yeah.
I didn't. I did. I was very sure that was my. She made me remember. She's like,
Yeah.
it's going to be your decision. So, yeah, it's funny how And then I've got my kids in India that, of course, I'm only around 3 months a year, and I talk to them on the phone, talk to the house mother. And so it's totally different than raising a child for full time. But it's very interesting to me to see, we've got two of our kids that have been with us the longest, and the brother Vinod and Anandi, the two, and the brother and sister. And they both hit a certain age, even though Vinod's been with us since he was 10, and Nandi's been with us since she was 5. And they both have no mother and father. So they both sort of came from that traumatic background, village life. But both, when they hit 14, 15, had the same rebellion in school, didn't want to go to school for a couple of months, and had some kind of almost psychological issues. But, we got through them. But it was interesting to see that in them. It's like we think we're born with a clean slate, but are we?
Man, that is a 10-hour conversation in my mind, because you see some kind of legacy programming in animals. We raise animals, and we had our potbelly pig just had babies, and she was never around a female pig that would have shown her how to be a mother. There's just no experience in her whole life where she would have known what to do. And so we were pretty nervous when we mated her, because we're like, man, are we going to have to get involved with helping her nest, with helping her birth? Is she going to be a good mother afterwards? Is she going to know how to? And she knew exactly what to do. When she got about a week out, she started nesting. She knew exactly what to find, what kind of materials to build a nest. She knew how to build it. And we were like, man, is she going to just trample all over her babies for the first time? And she was in tune with being a mother so well that it was as if she had done it 4 or 5 times. You would have thought she had 4 or 5 litters the way she reacted to this first litter ever. And it's strange because, it's like, well, that's their instincts. but where do your instincts come from? And what are, when you think about like humans and the evolution of humans and what we come from apes. We seem to know this at this point. And what kind of legacy is still in our nature, in our instincts, in the natural way we are in life, that we don't even realize is so deep in our DNA. And I think that's interesting when you see how our society is, how we have these tribes. No matter, even if our tribes agree with each other 99% of the time, we're only going to focus on that 1% in most cases. And we start wars over really small differences from my viewpoint. And some of that seems to be this DNA programming of, well, that difference is going to destroy our tribe. We can't have any difference in our tribe because we can't count on, it's unpredictable. Differences is unpredictable to our tribe. And you just start to wonder, it's like, man, how much of our being is innate in our DNA, and how deep does that programming go from thousands of years of generation? Thousands of years of evolution.
Yeah, and that's what comes down to the sort of our mantra that we've been saying the last couple of months is awareness trumps
Yeah.
everything, right? And so we have this conditioning, whether it's conditioning from childhood or conditioning from our DNA, and yet awareness is beyond that.
Yeah.
When I watched that Social Dilemma movie on Netflix that everybody was so concerned and up in arms about, like how they're programming everything for consumption and sales and money. I've never, social media doesn't own me.
Right.
Because I'm aware and I do a lot of meditation and it's my choice. I'm aware when an ad pops up that I'm drawn to. Like, I totally know that's what they're doing, and I doesn't suck me in because of the awareness. And even the mushroom journeys is the same thing. The awareness, trumps that. There's this awareness that's even beyond being high, that trumps everything. So I don't know what point that is, but that's
Well, and it's a different landscape. You're using awareness in just different landscapes, and that's what that trip that we had. It became very obvious, pretty much right away. But towards the end, as we were discussing it, we're just being aware in different arenas. And I think what's really powerful about psychedelics or DMT or ayahuasca is their ability to bring up deeper parts of ourselves, deeper programming. It's like personal excavation, and the deeper you go, the more it's not, I don't want to say it's more interesting, but it's fascinating how convoluted and intertwined and how rooted in certain programs we can become. So much so that we become just we can become so focused on self-preservation of identity, of who we are. And the more excavating you do, to realize how little we are. We're nothing. We're really not any of this stuff. You could say we are beyond our identities and who we are, or that which we resonate with. But even as we were talking earlier, even the resonating and the wave functions and the algorithm that makes us up doesn't define us to the core. And that's what's I don't know that you could find that level of wisdom in a trip unless you had awareness. It just doesn't seem likely, because you gotta work through that process with a lot of awareness. And
absolutely. Yeah. It's the journey.
it is the journey. And that's what that's what I loved about Eddie is she's just like, there's a couple times where you're like, I'm still learning. I'm still uncovering a lot of this, awareness. And the discipline of a spiritual practice is really just the beginning, man. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's this unfurling over years and years. And I don't know that there's a speed to it. I don't know that you can say, well, I'm going to expedite my my spiritual awakening. It's got its own process. It's got its own way. It's got its own time. It's timeless in a lot of ways, that you're just all of a sudden going to look back and be like, whoa, I've unfurled quite a bit, but I'm still I'm so humble. And the other thing I had to stop, because the other thing that was really interesting, I know Roger said it, and I'm pretty sure Werner said this, was the more you uncover, the more spiritual walk you have in that journey of self-reflection, the less and less you seem to know. We seem to know for sure. We become very aware of how insignificant to a certain degree we are, and how vast, life and godliness is, and essence of life is. That the more you
Yeah.
unfurl, the more you've realized you've unfurled, the more you just want to, that becomes your focus, and your purpose is just to experience that opening, state of being.
Yeah, it's infinite. I mean, I think that, I am the universe, you are the universe, we are the universe. It's like that's infinite and never ending.
Yeah,
And so the journey it's about the journey, not the destination.
absolutely. That's what it seems. That's what it seems to be. That's one
We
thing I'm
keep
pretty sure
we
about.
keep thinking there's goals and there's destinations, and there is that. Well, who was it that said? Oh yeah, it was East Forest that I've been listening to lately. He said he's got a meditation like there is no destination. There is no destination.
No, because I mean, you may not even stop when you die. Like there's no certainty that death is the end of
Well, to
anything.
me, that's when it just begins, really.
Right. That's death is the great awakening into another shift, another space. After that, we don't know. But I certainly hope when I get to that point, I have the same fervor for exploration, and not fear for that next stage, because
Yeah.
it is the journey. It's an inevitable part of our journey. So go gracefully.
Enough said.
I think so.
All right. Until next time. Thank you.
Yes. Good night.
Love you. Bye.
Too. Bye.